Chosen one. Listen closely. For what you are about to hear is not a story or a metaphor. It is a divine interruption. A spiritual warning delivered directly through the authority of the Most High and the vigilance of Michael. 3 hours ago. Only 3 hours. The path of your destiny was targeted in secret. A woman consumed by envy, wrapped in bitterness, and blinded by comparison attempted to poison your life. She believed she could bring you down without consequence. She believed darkness could trespass on a soul protected by heaven. She believed your light could be extinguished. But she was wrong. What she prepared twisted back upon her almost immediately. The trap she set collapsed under the weight of spiritual law, and instead of destroying you, it exposed her own heart. The very moment she acted, heaven intervened. That is why this message reaches you now. This is about you. You carry a presence that disrupts plans formed in shadow. You walk with an energy that cannot be ignored. An energy that provokes both admiration and jealousy. Someone significant is watching your steps, waiting for you to rise fully into the calling written over your life. And that is why you must refine yourself. You must present the strongest, clearest, most disciplined version of who you are meant to be. This is not about vanity. It is about alignment, not about appearance. It is about readiness. When you step into your true identity, the atmosphere shifts. When you rise, darkness reacts. When someone is chosen, opposition awakens. The scripture in Luke 8:17 declares, "For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest." And today, the darkness has been drawn into the light, so you may walk with clarity instead of confusion. You are being positioned, and heaven is urging you to stay alert. Before we go deeper into the spiritual mechanics of what happened in these last 3 hours, you must anchor yourself in declaration. Comment 777 as a sign of agreement. Declare, I receive this message. Like this message so it reaches those who are unaware of the dangers forming around them. Share it so the light spreads farther than the plans of the shadows. And subscribe, because guidance will come to you quickly and repeatedly in this season. Something has already shifted. The battle has already begun. Stay awake, stay aligned, and stay covered. Before we can understand what happened in the last 3 hours, we must trace the path that led her there, because darkness does not appear suddenly. It grows quietly, patiently, and often unnoticed. The woman who attempted to poison your life did not begin as a villain. She was not born with malice. She did not wake up one morning and decide to conspire against your destiny. Her downfall began in small, ordinary moments, subtle thoughts she refused to confront, quiet comparisons she allowed to take root, resentments she chose to feed instead of release. Every time she saw you succeed, something inside her tightened. Every time your name was spoken with respect, something in her heart cracked. Every time you stood with confidence, something in her spirit grew unsettled. And instead of asking why, instead of seeking healing, she chose to turn those moments into fuel. This is how envy operates. It whispers, it corrodes, it rewrites reality. It convinces a person that someone else's light is a threat to their own. It convinces them that their suffering is caused by another's purpose. It convinces them that the only way to rise is to pull someone else down. This is why envy is one of the most destructive forces within the human heart. It hides, it disguises itself, and it demands to be fed. This is also why C.S. Lewis warned so passionately in the Screwtape Letters. The darkness does not need a dramatic doorway to enter a person's life. It only needs a tiny crack, a lingering resentment, a jealous thought, a comparison repeated enough times to become a belief. Lewis explained that the enemy's most effective strategy is subtlety. Not sudden evil, but gradual compromise. Not violent corruption, but the slow twisting of the inner world until a person cannot recognize themselves. That is exactly what happened to her. Instead of confronting the discomfort she felt around your presence, she justified it. Instead of acknowledging the admiration beneath her resentment, she denied it. Instead of choosing growth, she chose comparison. And comparison is a thief. It steals joy, distorts purpose, blinds vision. It tells a person that they are losing when they are merely watching someone else win. It convinces them that they are behind when, in truth, their journey simply moves at a different pace. Slowly, step by step, she allowed these thoughts to shape her identity. She listened to them, she nurtured them, she believed them, and the more she believed them, the more distance she created between herself and the light she once carried. Every time she saw you walk with grace, she felt her own steps grow unsteady. Every time you embraced your strength, she felt weaker. Every time you stood in your authenticity, she felt exposed. This is anaphora with purpose, because the repetition mirrors the repetition in her own mind. She replayed the same distorted idea over and over. You were the cause of her emptiness. Yet the truth is that she was betrayed not by you, but by her refusal to confront what was broken within herself. That refusal allowed her to be influenced by others who carried the same darkness. People who whispered into her insecurity. People who encouraged her bitterness. People who validated her distorted perspective, because it served their own dissatisfaction. And so the pattern continued, unchallenged. Small comparisons became quite resentful. Quiet resentment became bitterness. Bitterness became an obsession. And obsession became the doorway to destruction. That is the progression of darkness. Subtle, silent, systematic. It always begins with a seed. A seed she could have uprooted. A seed she could have confessed. A seed she could have surrendered. But she watered it instead. This is why spiritual teaching matters, because the heart must be disciplined. Otherwise, it becomes a battlefield where unexamined thoughts gain power. The scripture says, in Jeremiah 17:9, that the heart is deceitful above all things. And we see the truth of that warning in her story. She trusted the voice of envy more than the voice of wisdom. She trusted her fear more than her purpose. She trusted her bitterness more than the truth. And in doing so, she stepped further and further away from who she was meant to be. Her darkness did not begin with action. It began with emotion. Then it became thought. Then it became a belief. Then it became identity. And finally, it became an intention. That is how she reached the point of deciding that your light had to be extinguished. 3 movements summarize her downfall: comparison, corruption, and collapse. That is the tricolon of her spiritual decay. Yet even in her descent, there is a lesson for you. The brighter your light becomes, the more shadows it will provoke. The more aligned you are, the more opposition awakens, and the more clearly you walk in purpose. The more those who refuse to confront their inner wounds will misinterpret your existence. Understanding her descent is the key to understanding your protection. And now that this foundation has been set, we can move into the next stage of this revelation, to understand how she moved from quiet resentment to deliberate harm. We must look at the voices she allowed into her life. No one collapses into darkness alone. There are always whispers, subtle influences, hidden agreements, unspoken encouragements that strengthen the very thoughts a person should resist. In her case, these whispers came from individuals who carried their own shadows. They recognized the bitterness growing within her because it mirrored their own. Instead of guiding her back to clarity, They fed the very emotions that were pulling her away from the light. They magnified her insecurity, validated her jealousy, and justified her growing hostility. This is how darkness spreads through resonance. A wounded heart attracts wounded voices. A resentful spirit seeks companions who echo its pain. She surrounded herself with those who benefited from her decline, people who spoke support, but carried secret delight in seeing her drift further from the truth. They encouraged her misinterpretations, telling her that you were the obstacle in her path, that your presence overshadowed her, that your light was somehow responsible for her frustration. The more she listened, the more real those lies felt. And the more real they felt, the farther she fell. Darkness rarely shouts. It whispers. It disguises itself as empathy, as advice, as solidarity. It sounds like understanding when, in truth, it is manipulation. The whispers she embraced did not push her toward growth. They pulled her toward destruction. They told her what she wanted to hear, not what she needed to hear. They amplified the cracks already forming in her heart. Slowly, her perception shifted. She began to rewrite reality in a way that positioned you as the cause of her suffering and herself as the victim. This victimhood became the foundation of her justification. People who choose darkness must first convince themselves they are right. That is exactly what those around her helped her do. Instead of confronting her insecurity, she nurtured it. Instead of questioning her resentment, she defended it. Instead of examining her motives, she fortified them. The whispers became a chorus, and the chorus became a trap. She mistook the voices of wounded people for wisdom. She mistook affirmation for truth. She mistook validation for revelation. And that confusion became the turning point. Once she accepted the lies as truth, she also accepted the idea that harming you was not wrong, but necessary. This is the spiritual danger of surrounding oneself with the wrong voices. They do not just influence actions, they rewrite identity. She no longer saw herself as someone losing her way. She believed she was finally claiming her power, finally taking control, finally correcting a wrong she thought had been done to her. But power obtained through resentment is not strength. Control born from jealousy is not authority. And action fueled by bitterness is not the purpose. She did not realize that every whisper was guiding her toward a consequence she would ultimately face alone. Those who encouraged her disappeared the moment the weight of her choices arrived. They left her with the very darkness they amplified, the very consequences they helped create. This is why discernment is essential. Not every supportive voice is a safe voice. Not every listener is a guide. Not every affirmation is alignment. There are moments in life when the wrong person agreeing with you can lead you down a path that alters your destiny. She stepped onto that path willingly, believing she was empowered when, in truth, she was being dismantled from the inside out. Now that we have traced how her heart opened to influence, we can move deeper into what she did next. The moment she sought out the shadows themselves, once the whispers around her became louder than the truth within her. The next step in her descent required no persuasion. She convinced herself she needed something stronger than resentment, something tangible, something that could bring an end to the light she believed was eclipsing her life. And so she sought out a place far removed from the ordinary world, a place where the atmosphere itself felt heavy and the air carried the residue of choices made in desperation. She traveled to a house that people only mentioned in lowered voices, a house spoken of as if it belonged to another realm entirely. Its walls were marked by the history of those who had gone there seeking power without wisdom, justice without righteousness, control without responsibility. This was not a place one stumbled upon. It was a place one arrives at only when the heart has leaned so far away from light that it begins to mistake darkness for deliverance. When she entered, she met the woman who lived there, an older figure whose presence felt like a shadow made solid. Calm, unmoved, knowing. This woman did not ask for introductions. She did not pretend to offer comfort. She simply observed as though she could read every wound and every motive without a single word being spoken. And then, with a voice that carried the weight of many such encounters, she asked the question that revealed everything. Who do you wish to destroy and why? There was no hesitation. Your name left her lips with clarity, shaped by envy, sharpened by disappointment, and carried by a conviction that had been cultivated slowly and silently over time. She spoke of you as if your existence itself was an offense, as if your light stole something from her, as if your growth diminished her own. Her words were not just accusations. They were confessions of the darkness she had allowed to grow within her. The older woman listened with a neutrality that was unsettling, neither judging nor questioning. She simply accepted the intent and slid a small, dark vial across the table. Its contents shimmered faintly, as if alive, and beside it, she placed a folded piece of paper, old, fragile, stained with time. That paper was not decoration, nor was it a formality. It was a warning meant to save her from herself. But in the rush of emotion, in the false sense of power she believed she was reclaiming, she barely glanced at it before dismissing it entirely. She chose the vial, but rejected the wisdom. She wanted the weapon, but not the truth. She wanted victory without understanding the cost. The most dangerous moment in any person's life is when they believe they are acting in control while standing on the edge of their own undoing. She left that house with the vial clutched tightly in her hand, convinced she had secured the answer to her pain. But what she truly carried was not a solution. It was the beginning of a consequence. And now, having seen where her footsteps led, we can move closer to the moment she enacted her plan. With the vial hidden in her grasp and her intention fixed, she returned home, carrying a sense of triumph she believed was long overdue. The darkness she had embraced did not feel like danger to her. It felt like control. It felt like justice. It felt like the empowerment she had been craving for so long. Fueled by that illusion, she prepared the setting with deliberate precision. She took out a glass, placed it where she imagined you would stand, and envisioned the moment. Her mind replayed the scene again and again. You approaching, trusting, unaware, drinking without suspicion, and collapsing under the weight of the trap she had constructed. This rehearsed fantasy gave her a sense of confidence she had not felt in years. It fed her wounded ego. It quieted her insecurities. It convinced her she was finally about to reclaim the narrative of her life. When she opened the vial, she watched the liquid shimmer, a deceptive beauty that masked the danger within. She counted 3 drops, because she was told 3 was enough to unravel a destiny, and let them fall into the drink. The liquid disappeared instantly, blending with the surface as if nothing had been altered. She smiled, believing she had orchestrated the perfect moment. What she did not realize was that the perfection she felt was not mastery. It was blindness. Darkness often disguises itself as confidence. It lets a person feel invincible at the exact moment they are most vulnerable to destruction. And so she waited, heart pounding, breath sharp, convinced that what she had done would elevate her by eliminating you. But spiritual law does not bend to human bitterness. It does not obey envy, nor does it respond to resentment. What she had invoked was not a tool she controlled. It was a force, bound by principles she did not understand. And that force began reacting the moment you stepped into the room. You did not touch the glass. You did not lift it toward your lips. You did not sense danger in the natural world. But the spiritual realm reacted instantly. You carry a covering, a protection that does not require your awareness to activate. The atmosphere shifted. Something unseen stood between you and the poison. A barrier formed by the light you walk with, the purpose assigned to you, and the guardianship that has followed you long before this moment. Michael does not arrive with noise. He arrives with authority. The moment your presence drew near the trap, it was not you who changed. It was her. The vial's essence, bound by the warning she had ignored, recognized the malice in her heart. It followed the signature of the one who released it. It aligned itself not with the intended target, but with the source of the intention itself. She expected you to weaken, to fall, to break. Instead, her own body responded as if she had consumed the poison herself. At first, it was subtle, a sudden heaviness in her chest, an unexpected tremble in her hands, a faint dizziness. She assumed was stress, but within minutes, the symptoms intensified. Her breath began to shorten, each inhale feeling thinner than the last. Her heartbeat lost rhythm, stumbling, racing, then slowing unpredictably. Her skin grew cold, as if the warmth had been pulled out of her by an unseen force. And as the physical symptoms rose, confusion flooded her mind. She could not understand why she was the one collapsing. Panic replaced confidence. Fear replaced arrogance. Reality replaced illusion. She searched for explanations. Perhaps the concoction was faulty. Perhaps she had touched something she should not have. Perhaps someone had sabotaged the vial. But nothing external had betrayed her. Only her own heart had. The truth she had refused to read, the warning written clearly on that fragile piece of paper, was now unfolding within her body. This is not poison of the flesh, but poison of the spirit. It follows the heart that wields it. The darkness she attempted to project onto your path had no permission to touch you. The intention behind it was incompatible with your purpose. The force she tried to manipulate did not bend to her will. It responded to the condition of her inner world. Your light disarmed the attack, and her malice activated the consequence. 3 hours. That was all it took for her plan to reverse direction. For the spiritual law she ignored to reveal its design. For the weapon she forged to point back at her. Her collapse was not random. It was not accidental. It was not the result of a miscalculation of ingredients or timing. It was the inevitable outcome of aligning oneself with energies one does not understand. She had invoked something that obeyed truth, not intention. She had called upon a force that is bound not to desire, but to purity. And when purity was absent, the force returned to its source. The moment you remained untouched, the reversal was sealed. And now you must understand this. Your protection was not luck. It was not a coincidence. It was not mere timing. It was the result of the spiritual authority that surrounds your life. It was the evidence that you are guarded by a purpose that cannot be derailed by envy, bitterness, or hidden plots. This moment, the moment her plan unraveled, is not just an event. It is a revelation. It exposes the truth of who you are, the power that covers you, and the destiny that remains intact, despite the intentions of those who cannot see their own shadows. With this reversal understood, we can now move deeper into what happened next. The unraveling of her spirit as the full weight of her actions returned upon her. Now that the reversal has been revealed, the focus shifts away from her collapse and back to you. Because this moment was never solely about the danger. It was about the revelation of your identity. What happened was not just a warning. It was a confirmation. You are protected because you are chosen. And being chosen carries both privilege and responsibility. You cannot walk through life unaware of the influence you carry. You cannot underestimate the impact your presence has on those who have not yet confronted their own wounds. Some are inspired by you, but others are threatened. Some are strengthened by your light, but others feel exposed because of it. And while it is not your job to dim your brightness to make others comfortable, it is your responsibility to understand that your spiritual presence creates reactions, both positive and negative. This is why discernment is essential. This is why awareness is necessary. And this is why heaven allowed you to see the truth behind what happened. Because you cannot move into your next season with naivety. You must understand that the brighter your light becomes, the more shadows it reveals, the higher your calling rises, the more resistance awakens, the more you align with purpose, the more those who refuse to grow will misinterpret your path. But you cannot shrink because others refuse to expand. You cannot apologize for being who you were created to be. You cannot carry the weight of someone else's insecurity. Your responsibility is to protect your heart, not to manage theirs. Still, this revelation is not meant to make you fearful. It is meant to make you vigilant. You are not fragile. You are not unprepared. You are not walking alone. What happened revealed the spiritual covering that surrounds you, one that does not depend on your awareness, but on your destiny. Yet, even with this protection, you must stay aligned. You must strengthen your spirit, guard your mind, and sharpen your intuition. You cannot be careless with the people you allow close to you. You cannot ignore the subtle shifts in energy around you. And you cannot mistake kindness for obligation. There will always be individuals who approach you with hidden motives, wounded intentions, or quiet envy. You must learn to recognize the signs without losing your compassion. You must learn to set boundaries without losing your grace. You must learn to stand firm without losing your humility. This is where your personal refinement becomes important. You were told earlier that you have an energy that draws attention, and that someone significant is watching you. This is part of your preparation. You must become consistent, intentionnel, and disciplined in how you present yourself, not for vanity, but for readiness. When someone is called into a higher purpose, every part of their life must rise to meet that calling. Their habits, their confidence, their posture, their voice, their presence. Your development is not cosmetic. It is spiritual alignment. When you present the strongest version of yourself, you are not pretending to be someone else. You are stepping into who you were always meant to be. Do not let your old self drag you back into smallness. Do not let fear make you shrink. Do not let comfort keep you stagnant. You were not protected merely to survive. You were protected to rise. And this moment, this revelation, this divine interception is evidence that heaven is preparing you for a chapter that requires greater strength, greater clarity, and greater authority. As you move forward, do so knowing that protection follows purpose. And because your purpose is still unfolding, your protection is still active. With this understanding established, we can now look deeper into the consequences she faced as the spiritual law she ignored continued to unfold as your protection held firm. The force she attempted to unleash continued its course, not toward you, but back toward her. Spiritual law is not swayed by emotions or intentions. It is governed by alignment. What she carried within her heart became the compass that directed the energy she invoked. And because her heart was filled with resentment, fear, and twisted desire, the force followed its true source. Her body reacted first, but the deeper collapse happened within her spirit. The same malice she projected outward began to surface inward. Every hidden thought she had entertained, every jealous idea she had nurtured, every comparison she had allowed to distort her perception rose to confront her all at once. She found herself unable to escape the echo of her own intentions. The bitterness she once justified returned to her as a torrent of clarity she could no longer ignore. This is the unseen truth. Many fail to understand. Darkness is not controlled by the one who conjures it. It is controlled by the principles it answers to. It cannot be directed towards someone whose life is aligned with light. It cannot touch a person whose purpose has been sealed by heaven. It cannot infiltrate a destiny that stands under divine assignment. And so, when she attempted to violate a boundary, she did not understand. She collided with a spiritual reality she had never prepared for. Her fear intensified when she realized you were unaffected. She expected you to show signs of weakness, to struggle, to falter, but you stood untouched, shielded by a covering she could neither comprehend nor replicate. In that moment, confusion turned into terror. The illusion of control she once carried was shattered. The whispers that had fueled her decisions fell silent. All that remained was the undeniable truth that the force she unleashed recognized the condition of her heart and responded accordingly. This was not punishment in the human sense. It was not vengeance. It was not retaliation. It was a consequence. Pure, inherent, unaltered consequence. The fulfillment of a law she ignored. The harvest of intentions she planted. The return of energy she attempted to weaponize. The universe does not leave seeds unaddressed. Whether they are seeds of love or seeds of malice. She had sown darkness, and darkness returned. She had chosen resentment, and resentment consumed her. She had aligned with shadow, and shadow overtook her. Yet, even in this unraveling, there is a lesson for you. Her collapse serves as a demonstration of why you must remain rooted in truth and why your heart must stay aligned with light. For those who walk in purpose, the impact of their intentions extends far beyond themselves. Your life, your choices, and your alignment create ripples that touch realms you cannot see. The same is true for those who choose the opposite path. Understanding this law prepares you for the next revelation. Not only what happened to her physically and spiritually, but what this moment means for your journey ahead. With the consequences in motion, we can now enter the deeper truth behind her unraveling and the clarity heaven intended for you to receive through it. As the force continued to return to its origin, her physical collapse became only the surface of what was truly happening. The greater breakdown occurred within the unseen chambers of her inner world. The poison she attempted to direct toward your destiny was not designed to attack the body alone. It was crafted to confront the state of a person's spirit. Because of this, the unraveling began where her intentions had been formed in her thoughts, in her motives, and in the beliefs she had allowed to shape her decisions. She felt her mind grow heavy with memories she had long buried, each one resurfacing with painful clarity. Every moment she had spoken against you. Every thought she entertained that diminished you. Every assumption she allowed to distort her view returned with a force she could no longer suppress. It poured over her like a revelation she had never asked for, but could no longer escape. What she once justified began to feel unbearable. What she once dismissed as harmless now appeared as the root of her downfall. For the first time, she saw the truth, not through the lens of resentment, but through the consequences of the intentions she had chosen, and that clarity was devastating. Darkness had offered her a false promise that harming you would restore her power, but the moment the truth surfaced, she realized that the darkness she welcomed had not been serving her. It had been eroding her. Every step she had taken toward shadow had been a step away from her own purpose, her own peace, her own identity. Now that the spiritual force had returned to her, the illusions fell apart. Her inner voice, once fueled by insecurity, now echoed with regret. Her thoughts, once filled with justification, now confronted her with undeniable truth. She understood too late that the very qualities she resented in you were reflections of what she wished she possessed: clarity, confidence, alignment, purpose. She had compared her unfinished story to the chapters of your growth and believed the difference was in justice rather than timing. The unraveling showed her the gap she refused to address. It revealed the truth she never allowed herself to see. And as this realization overtook her, her fear deepened because she understood that she was not simply suffering a physical collapse. She was facing the spiritual consequences of her choices. The breakdown continued as she recognized how easily she had allowed outside voices to shape her path. Those she once trusted were nowhere to be found. The whispers that had pushed her toward destruction had abandoned her. The people who validated her jealousy offered no support when the weight of her decisions arrived. She was alone with the very darkness she chose, and the isolation made the unraveling even sharper. This moment serves as a profound reminder. The path of envy leads nowhere but inward, and the collapse it creates always begins within. It is not the result of what someone else has. It is the result of what a person refuses to confront within themselves. Her unraveling is the clearest evidence of this truth, and while her suffering is not something to celebrate, it is something to understand because it reveals the gravity of spiritual law and the importance of maintaining purity of intention. This revelation is not meant to frighten you, but to show you the magnitude of the protection surrounding your life. With her inner world exposed and the truth fully revealed, you are now ready to see the deeper lesson that heaven intends for you to carry forward. With her inner world laid bare and the truth rising uncontrollably to the surface, a final revelation began to unfold, one that was not meant for her alone, but for you. Her collapse became a mirror reflecting a spiritual law that governs every life, whether acknowledged or ignored. It is the law that what a person sends into the world returns to them, not in the form they expect, but in the form that matches the condition of their heart. She had sent out resentment, and it returned as affliction. She had planted envy, and it returned as torment. She had aligned herself with shadow, and the shadow swallowed her. Yet this reflection is not simply about the consequences she faced. It is about the clarity you are meant to gain from witnessing them. You were protected because your spirit is aligned with light, and light creates a shield that darkness cannot penetrate. But that protection also comes with responsibility. You cannot navigate your purpose without understanding the weight your presence carries. You cannot move forward in innocence, unaware of the spiritual gravity attached to your life. The moment you step into deeper alignment, your existence alone becomes an instruction to others. Your growth exposes the stagnation of those who refuse to evolve. Your integrity confronts the excuses people use to justify their complacency. Your confidence highlights the insecurities others have buried. And without meaning to, your very presence reveals where others have chosen comfort instead of transformation. This is why some are drawn to you while others react against you. It is not personal, it is spiritual. The instincts people have around you are shaped not by who you are on the surface, but by the resonance of your purpose. Those aligned with growth will find clarity in your presence. Those refusing growth will find discomfort in it. The lesson here is not to dim your light to avoid triggering others. It is to understand why your light triggers them in the first place. You are not meant to shrink to fit the expectations of wounded people. You are not designed to carry the weight of their emotions or their unhealed stories. And you were never supposed to apologize for walking in the truth of who you are becoming. Instead, this moment calls you to greater alignment. You must become more intentional with where you direct your energy, more careful with who you trust, and more aware of the subtle shifts in the spiritual atmosphere around you. You must protect the clarity that has been given to you. You must protect the peace that comes from walking in purpose. And above all, you must protect your heart, For the heart is the center of alignment. When the heart is steady, the path is steady. When the heart is pure, the protection is strong. When the heart is aligned, nothing sent against you can prosper. Her downfall demonstrates the consequence of misalignment. Your protection demonstrates the reward of alignment. And now, this moment invites you to step fully into the purpose that has been surrounding you all along. Because heaven has revealed this event not to frighten you, but to prepare you. With the mirror of consequence understood, we can now move deeper into the next part of this revelation. The call to choose light, intentionally and boldly, and the invitation to anchor yourself in a declaration that aligns you with the path ahead. Now that the mirror has been placed before you, the question that remains is not about what happened to her, but about what you will choose from this point forward. Revelation means nothing if it does not shift your posture. Protection means little if you do not step into the purpose it was designed to preserve. You have been shown the consequences of misalignment, so you can walk with intention, not fear. You have been shown the collapse of darkness, so you can rise with clarity. You have been shown the truth, so you can stand in the identity that has been calling you long before this moment. This is the point where the story turns entirely toward you. You are being asked to choose light, not passively, not symbolically, but intentionally and boldly. Choosing light means choosing integrity when bitterness would be easier. Choosing light means choosing discipline when comfort tempts you to stay the same. Choosing light means choosing growth, even when others prefer to remain stagnant. Choosing light is not a soft decision. It is a declaration of spiritual alignment. Every time you choose compassion over resentment, you strengthen your shield. Every time you choose honesty over manipulation, you elevate your path. Every time you choose purpose over distraction, you reinforce the protection that surrounds your life. Alignment is not maintained by accident. It is maintained by intention. And this moment is your invitation to become more deliberate with the energy you carry and the direction you walk. You have already seen what happens when a person resists growth, when they cling to comparison, when they outsource their identity to the opinions of others. You are being called to the opposite path. You are being called to refinement. You are being called to consistency. You are being called to present the strongest, clearest, most aligned version of yourself, not for approval, but for destiny. The path ahead requires a posture of strength. You must walk with awareness of your influence. You must carry yourself with the dignity of someone who is being prepared for a higher assignment. You must recognize that the way you speak, act, decide, and even present yourself shapes the atmosphere around you. This is why your growth is non-negotiable. This is why your discipline matters. This is why your inner world must remain steady. When someone is chosen, the weight of their purpose does not allow for carelessness. And you have been chosen. That is why you were protected. That is why you are being awakened. That is why the veil was lifted from the situation that unfolded 3 hours ago. You are stepping into a season where the clarity you hold will be just as important as the protection you carry. You cannot afford to dim yourself out of fear of being misunderstood. You cannot afford to shrink because others refuse to rise. You cannot afford to silence your spirit to preserve someone else's comfort. You must move forward with courage, recognizing that your path has already been guarded. Your steps have already been ordered, and your destiny has already been marked. This is your call to rise, not quietly, not cautiously, but decisively. You are being asked to honor the light within you, to protect it, to nurture it, and to walk in it with confidence. With the call to alignment now given, we can move into the next part of this message, the moment of declaration, the point where you affirm the direction of your spirit and step fully into the identity heaven has been preparing you to embrace. As this revelation draws to its deepest point, You are invited into a moment that is not intellectual, not emotional, but spiritual. Understanding alone is not enough. Transformation requires alignment, and alignment requires surrender. This final portion is a prayer, an anchoring of your spirit into the light that has already been fighting for you. Receive these words, not as poetry, not as ritual, but as a covering spoken over your life. Heavenly Father, we step into your presence with humility and clarity, acknowledging that every hidden thing has now been revealed and that your protection has been made unmistakably visible. You intervened before danger reached its intended target. You exposed the plot before harm could be carried out. You allowed the plans of darkness to collapse under the weight of their own corruption. And now, we come before you to acknowledge the magnitude of your guardianship. We thank you for placing a shield around this life. A shield reinforced, not by chance, but by purpose. We thank you for the covering of Michael, for the unseen protection that activates in silence, for the battles fought on behalf of a destiny that has not yet fully unfolded. Strengthen this person's spirit that they may walk boldly into the identity you have prepared for them. Remove every remnant of fear, every residue of doubt, every trace of confusion left behind by the shadows that attempted to reach them. Let no anxiety linger from what almost happened. Let no hesitation remain in the heart that you are calling forward. Replace fear with confidence. Replace uncertainty with wisdom. Replace passivity with purpose. Father, cleanse their path. Remove the influence of every voice that has spoken against their growth, every whisper that attempted to distort their identity, and every person who carried hidden intentions. Establish boundaries in their spirit so they may discern the energy of those who approach them. Let their intuition sharpen. Let their spirit become steady. Let their vision become clearer than ever before. Prepare them for the elevation ahead. Align their habits, their appearance, their voice, their posture, and their decisions with the calling you placed upon their life. Let their presence reflect the strength you have been building within them. Let their character reveal the discipline required by their purpose. Let their future unfold in accordance with the light they carry. We ask for continued protection. Guard them against envy, resentment, deception, and silent plots. Surround their home with peace. Surround their mind with clarity. Surround their relationships with truth. Break every attempt that rises against their purpose before it forms. Dissolve every intention that does not align with your will. Strengthen their spirit so they walk not as someone afraid of darkness, but as someone who understands that darkness cannot touch what you have ordained. Let them rise into their next season with confidence, courage, and conviction. Let them walk with the certainty that their steps are guided, guarded, and grounded in divine order. And now, as this prayer seals over their life, let them step boldly into their declaration, the declaration that shapes what comes next, the declaration that heaven honors. I choose the light. I choose alignment. I choose purpose. I release every fear and embrace the identity prepared for me. I walk in protection. I walk in clarity. I walk in destiny. Nothing sent against me will prosper. Nothing hidden will remain hidden. Nothing formed in darkness will enter my path. This is my time to rise, to align, and to step fully into who I am meant to become. Comment 777 if you receive this. Declare it. Stand in it. Speak it. And step into the light that has always been waiting for you.